She was older than me. She was about, look at me, but she was in her late 50s or early 60s, something like that.
So you, a 20-year-old, a 25-year-old man in a fight with a woman in her 60s?
Yeah, she was a big woman.
All right. Well, after you hit her in the head with the hammer, why didn't you just leave?
I tried to do that, but
Wait a
she
minute.
wouldn't. It was a struggle. It was a struggle, and
Okay, but I
it
would.
escalated. It escalated from there. I was trying that. I didn't not intend for that to go as far as
Okay.
it did.
So I've been reading the comments and I see that you've been asking for some classic Miss Jackson, Mr. Roche hearings. So we are going to bring you one that we haven't brought to you yet. And that took place in 2022. It's a commutation hearing. And as you can see, it's a bit of a wild one. I'll unpack it with some interesting details at the end.
All right. So you are George Moore III. Your DOC number is 98494. You're seeking a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in August 1982 in Madison Parish to life for a first-degree murder conviction. Mr. Moore, is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am. It is.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Jackson. Good afternoon, Mr. Moore. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm still alive.
That's a blessing. That's a blessing. Well, your case has been assigned to me, so I'm going to start asking the questions, all right?
Yes, ma'am.
How old are you, Mr. Moore?
I'm 66 now.
And how long have you served on this charge?
This will be going on 41 years. This year will be 41 years.
And that in December.
Yes, ma'am. 13.
And so how old were you when you committed this crime?
I was 25.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about who you were back then. Had you graduated from high school?
No, ma'am, I wasn't.
Why didn't you graduate from high school?
Well, I was in and out of trouble mostly. And
How old were you when you first started getting into trouble?
I was 14.
What kind of trouble did you start off with?
Well, it was basically knocking glasses out of vehicles and stuff like that. I was running with the wrong crowd is what I was doing. And since they were doing it, I started doing it. So
Were you committing burglaries? Were you breaking the windows out of the vehicles to steal something?
no, ma'am. We just were breaking the windows just to break them. And it didn't make any sense. So the chief of police at that time, he got me and had me in the car and he was trying to talk to me. He told me, he said, now, you know, you're going to wind up going to reform school for doing stuff like this. Now I'm going to bring you to your mother. So he brought me to my mother and she tried to talk to me, said, you could just in and out of trouble, in and out of trouble. I'm going to have to send you to Florida where her brother lived. And that's why I ultimately wound up going.
How old were you when you went to Florida?
I was 15 then.
How long did you stay? Where in Florida?
Fort Pierce, Florida.
And how long did you stay in Florida?
I stayed in Florida till I was 19.
All right, so from 15 to 19, what were you doing? Were you working or were you in school? Were you still getting in trouble? What was going on between
Oh
ages?
no, I wasn't getting in no trouble. They was fruit picking. You picking fruit in the fruit groves and stuff. That's my uncle. He worked as a subcontractor, and that's what he had me doing.
Okay, but you didn't go back. You didn't get back to school.
No, ma'am. What no school. It was work every day. He told me he was gonna make a man out of me. That's what he said.
Okay, so what brought you back to Louisiana?
Something that happened, and well, she wasn't his wife. She was like his live-in girlfriend. She tried to do something to me that I wasn't comfortable with, and when I tried to talk to him about it, he laughed about it. But I called my mother and told her what was going on. And she told me that, well, what you want to do? You want to come home or you want to go where your brother is? My brother lived in Fort Worth, Texas. And I told her, I said, well, I'll go to Fort Worth because I can't stay here with this. You know, I had never had any experience for with girls, and what she was trying to do, I wasn't comfortable with that.
Okay. And so you came back to Louisiana. How did you end up getting back into trouble?
I went to Texas. I was in Texas. And when I came back to Louisiana for Christmas holiday, I got into a fight at this place with a guy. That's when I first did time. I did the East Cal Parish Prison. I did a 3-year sentence for battery. I got into a fight, and it started from there. And I could have got out on parole in, but I turned the parole down because my mom told me, "Say you're going down the same road you was in." So I turned the parole down.
Okay, but it was an aggravated battery, which means there was some kind of weapon used. What kind of weapon did you use when you committed the battery? It got you that time.
The guy I was fighting with, he had a stick. I took the stick from him and hit him with the stick. And that's how I got the aggravated battery charge.
You ended up serving a 3-year sentence for that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, how long after you got out of prison did you commit the crime that you're serving time for now?
About almost 3 years. Almost.
Well, how old were you when you committed this crime?
The one I'm on now?
Yes. Yes.
The one that I'm in here doing the time for now?
Yes.
I was 25. I was 25.
So let's talk about that day. What happened? How did you end up killing this woman?
I had been on drugs, what we call freebase, and at that time that just had
Let's stop right there. When did you start using drugs?
It was about almost 3 years had went by, and I ran into an old guy that I did time with. We got hooked up together, and that's when the drug use started. Because first I didn't do drugs, and started out smoking weed, and from there went to putting coke in the weed, and it got to the point I just couldn't do without it.
So what happened on the day that this crime occurred?
That day there, my girlfriend, who was pregnant at the time, she sent me for to go and get us some ice cream. So it was pouring down raining. Went out for to get the ice cream. And when I got there, the victim, she was talking to another individual, but they was in a conversation about a pregnant woman. I was under the impression that they was talking about my girlfriend. But as it turned out, I later found out that wasn't the case at all. And all of this started because I was thinking that this was being said about my girlfriend. And by me being on that stuff at the time, I wasn't thinking correctly. And I always had a problem.
So what did you do?
Me and her got into an argument in there, and it just escalated from there. And
But tell us what you did.
me and her got in an argument. She hit me, and when she hit me, I said some things that I shouldn't have said. She said, and we got into a fight, and my temper took over, and I just lost control.
Okay, but didn't you hit her in the head with a hammer?
It wasn't a hammer. She had something looked like a pipe was over behind the counter where she was at. And that's what that was. It wasn't a hammer.
Well, they say it was a ball peen hammer. You know what a ball peen hammer is?
No.
It doesn't have a ball on it. It has a ball
No, this
Where the
was
ball was.
like a pipe. That's what it was. It was a pipe. Now,
Mhm.
I think they probably got that confused with when I was at the East Carroll Parish Prison. They had us working in the slaughter room, and we used to use a ball peen hammer to slaughter the animals that we used to process there. That's the only time a ball peen hammer had ever been used.
And so you hit her with the pipe?
Yes, ma'am. She hit me, and I hit her, and it escalated.
Stop talking. How old a person was this lady?
I have no idea.
If you had to guess.
Uh, she was older than me. She was about, look at me, but she was in her late 50s or early 60s, something like that.
So you, a 20-year-old, a 25-year-old man in a fight with a woman in her 60s?
Yeah, she was a big woman.
All right. Well, after you hit her in the head with the hammer, why didn't you just leave?
I tried to do that, but
Wait a
she
minute.
wouldn't. It was a struggle. It was a struggle, and
Okay, but
it
I
it
would-
escalated. It escalated from there. I was trying that. I didn't not intend for that to go as far as it did.
Are you telling me that a 25-year-old man could not get out of the grip of a woman in her 60s?
If you seen the size of her, you would understand. We was in a struggle. I could.
Or
She
when
gave,
did you? Okay, stop talking. But you ended up shooting her in the head, didn't you?
with her own pistol. The pistol I took from her to keep her from shooting me.
Right. So all the weapons involved, they came from her, and she pulled them on you. Is that correct?
She went to put them. I took it from her. I took it from her. That's how I was trying to leave. She wouldn't. When she went for that, that's when it escalated. I just lost
Well, then why did you go in the register and take money?
money.
Hmm.
That was.
Oh, register and took money?
I don't know anything about any money.
Okay, all right. I saw something about that in the police report, but that's okay. Let me ask you this. You've been in prison a long time. It's almost 41 years. Tell us some of the things that you've done to improve yourself over the last 41 years.
When I first got an opportunity to get in school, they took us out of the school when I first got here because they said at that time, if you had a life sentence, you wasn't eligible. So I tried to get in trade school. They also said you wasn't eligible. So when the guys would come back and forth from the school, I would get them to try to tutor me because I wanted to do something with my life. And I couldn't do it because of the fact everything had me shut off because I had a life sentence. And it wasn't until administrations changed that changed. And as soon as it did, I got enrolled in the self-help program.
Tell me what programs you were able to take.
I was able to take 100 hours. I was able to take substance abuse, anger management, thinking for a change, and the one that I'm in right now, victims awareness.
Okay. So did you do living in balance?
That's added in with the 100 hours living in balance.
Tell me about living in balance.
That's for people that pretty much trying to get away from that type of lifestyle for using the alcohol and the drugs and whatever. And you get an opportunity to try to enroll, and it pretty much led me to these programs that I got enrolled in.
Well, what did you
I
get out
got
of?
started.
What did you get out of living in balance?
I seen the life that I was living, and it was going nowhere. I didn't have no purpose. I didn't have no direction, and this was pointing me in the right direction.
Once you get, are you sure you're not talking about thinking for change?
All of this put me toward every other program that I took. It directed me to that because I liked each one that I took. I liked it. It showed me where I was and where I didn't want to be. So that's what I was doing.
Well, you told us about your serious drug addiction. What have you learned in prison that would help you with your drug addiction?
Mr. Jackson, when I first came here, I was smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day because I was stressed out because I was thinking about all what I had done and everything like that. And when I got enrolled in this, all that I could think about was trying to undo what I had done. And I didn't have a clue as to how to do it. And when I got started with these programs, then I seen that I was able to make a difference with what I was doing. So dealing with these programs, I was able to see that I lost my control by being under the influence of these drugs and stuff. And I lost that control, and that's what really caused it. I wasn't in control.
How, if you were to be successful, what have you learned that would help you not go back to using drugs? You know, it's different inside. I know there are drugs in the institution,
Yes, yes.
but not the same thing as being a free person in a world full of drugs and any other thing you want. So my question is, what have you learned that would help you not to fall back into those old habits?
Well, one thing that I learned, not to hang out in the same circles like what I was hanging out with, because if you introduce yourself to people that's doing these type of things, then you're going to wind up doing the same thing. So I disassociated myself with those types of circles. I went, believe it or not, I mean, they say you ain't supposed to talk about changing life through faith, but that's exactly what I did. In 2013, God became baptized and became a Jehovah's Witness. And since then, I pretty much been in circles with my Christian brothers. And they pretty much keep me straight. I mean, and through that, I keep myself straight.
So what kind of job skills do you have, Mr. Bradley?
Well,
What kind of job skills?
right now, I'm working at the water treatment plant. I keep the yard, I keep the building straight, stuff like that. But ever since I had the aneurysm, basically I can't do too much. But the things that I can do, I do them the best that I can because, I mean, people come in and out of prison, and right there where I work at, I keep that yard there immaculate so that everybody sees that ain't nothing just being run over. That's what I do. I try to do the best that I can.
Let me ask you, tell me about the aneurysm. When did you have the aneurysm?
I had an aneurysm in 2019.
And
And
how did the aneurysm affect you? How has it affected you?
well, on this side, I'm right-handed, but I can't write with my right hand no more because I don't have that much use of my right hand. So I had to teach myself how to write with my left. And I try to do everything now with the left hand. And that's basically what I do.
What about your memory and your thinking? Did the aneurysm affect that?
Well, I had to, it's like I was like in a fog, but through my Christian brothers, they helped me. And it's starting to come back bits and pieces. Like I got a schedule. I go to class on Tuesdays. I go to book study and Watchtower study on Wednesday. And on Saturday, we go in field service. And I base my rest of my week for the work week, and that's how I do week to week.
So if you were successful, I know, what's your plan? Where would you go? Where would you live? How would you support yourself?
I got in contact with the Parole Project, and I've been talking with them, and they told me that they got different resources there that can help me to get myself together, or as how to get job requirements and stuff like that. And basically, I have a place to stay because one of my family members, my sister, the one that's next to me, I'll be living with her. She don't have any children, and she and I basically be there by ourselves.
What kind of work do you think you can do?
That's what I'm trying to get with the Parole Project, to see what they can get me with, what I'm able to do.
Can I speak to the warden?
Yes, ma'am.
Warden, what can you tell us about Mr. Moore?
I don't have anything else to add to Mr. Moore. Everything that you have is the same thing I have. He hasn't had any reports since 2012, and he completed substance abuse anger management and T4C in 100 hours. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Moore, for speaking with me, and Mr. Johnson, that's all I have.
Mr. Moore, we'll hear from the folks who want to speak on your behalf. If we could hear from the Parole Project, Mr. Myers.
Yes, good afternoon. Kerry Myers, Louisiana Parole Project. Mr. Moore is 66 years old and has served about right at 40 years in prison. One of the things that Parole Project can assist him while he's with us is connecting him to the services that he is eligible for. Medicaid, he would be eligible based on his age and condition for SSI, supplemental income. So he would have an income even if he cannot find full-time employment, which is more than likely, going to be difficult. He does have a long-term residence with his sister in Tallulah, and we will work with Mr. Moore as long as we need to before he goes to that, till we determine that he's actually ready to make that next step transition. He has done, in 1999, he earned his GED while he was there. That was one of the first things he did when he talked about being able to get in school. He was ready to make changes in his life. When he was able to get in programs, he did that. He's maintained a good work record, even with his physical issues right now. And he hasn't had no disciplinary write-ups in 2012 and no disciplinary write-ups for violence in his entire incarceration. He took responsibility for his crime. He pleaded guilty. And at 66 years old, Mr. Moore is no threat to public safety. And we believe that he would be an excellent candidate for us. We'd make sure he has all the support he needs. And we just ask this board to grant his recommendation today.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Turner? Oh, your microphone's on mute. You're still on mute.
Now can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Moore is our first cousin of mine. I currently am the assistant pastor a couple of houses down from where that incident took place. And I've been there, assistant pastor there for 30 years. I've also worked law enforcement, which I retired from in 2017. And I'm also pastor at a church up in East Carroll Parish. And I will do everything in my power to keep him with me and to be right with him. You know, we've had a fairly close relationship, but I was working in Baton Rouge Police Department when that happened. I've never been arrested before, never been to jail for anything. And like I say, I worked law enforcement all of my life. Worked with even I think one guy that was with you guys, Ralph Stassi, at one point in time. But like I say, you know, he's been there 40 years. And I just hope and pray that this is a chance to him to rectify and get his life back on track. And I would just thank you guys for whatever y'all consideration is.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Turner.
ma'am.
Let me just clarify something that Mr. Myers indicated, a GED, and I think he said 1999. Mr. Moore, is that correct? When did you get your GED? We showing in the record there is none. On the
You
institution.
don't have a, you don't have a GED. You don't have a GED.
He does not.
No, ma'am. He just did the TABE test. That's it.
I apologize. I misspoke.
Okay, we just wanted to confirm. Thank you. All right, I believe it's panel prepared to vote, the board rather. Mrs. Jackson.
All right. All right, Mr. Moore, I appreciate you talking to me. You've only had 20 write-ups in 40 years, the last one being in 2012. You have taken some programs, you have a good institutional record. You do have some health issues that are probably going to make things more difficult for you as time goes on. But you do have the support of the Parole Project and the letters of support from two of your sisters, and a lot of people signed petitions on your behalf. And so in light of the amount of time that you served and the positive remarks that we've heard today, my vote would be recommend to the government that you sentence be commuted to 99 years with immediate parole eligibility. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Rush.
Mr. Moore,
Yes, sir.
I've sat down and I've listened, and I've listened to the story about this 6-year-old woman attacked you and you put it in yourself. And I don't believe that for a second. I don't believe that for a second. You know exactly where the pin ball hammer is. You shot the victim twice in the head and she grabbed your leg, and you did jump over the counter and you took the money out the cash register. And you just nonchalantly, without a care in the world, sat down and told that story. How big she was. But you've been incarcerated for 40 years. You have medical issues. You have the support of your family. You have the support of the Louisiana Parole Project. And I think your medical issues are going to get worse as time goes on. So I'm going to agree with Ms. Jackson, but I had to tell you, not for 1 second did I believe that concocted story about you were defending yourself when you went into that grocery store. You deliberately hit the lady and shot her twice, and then throughout the store. You would not have been convicted if you didn't do that. But I will agree with Ms. Jackson based upon the medical condition and based upon the length of incarceration. Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. O'Shea. Mr. Mirabella?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Moore, I agree with my colleagues. You've done a lot while you've been in prison. Your age, the length of time you've been in prison, the medical issues that you have. I vote would likewise to commute to 99 with immediate. Good luck to you.
Mr. Freeman?
I also agree with my colleagues and vote the commutation sentence to 99 years with immediate parole eligibility.
Great, thank you. Mr. Moore, I do agree based on your age and length of incarceration. I bet today would be to commute your sentence to 99 years with immediate parole eligibility. So we'll make that recommendation. Okay. You go.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, bro.
Okay, so the governor did sign the commutation, which is pretty much what we expected. It's very rare when they don't. And he is in the docket to have a parole hearing sometime in Q4. So in the next 5 months for sure. Probably, if I had to guess, in the next 3 to 5 months, we're going to see him show up, and I'll play it for you when he does show up. And thanks to Richard, it makes it so easy to see all this information. It's all in the spreadsheet. We know when the parole hearings are coming, and I'll play it for you. And in the past, a parole hearing after commutation is typically a shoo-in. I would say probably more than 95% of the time. And the reason is that the governor handpicks the pardon and parole board. It's a handpicked selection. So if the parole board, the pardon board, the commutation board says, hey, we're making a recommendation, governor, to commute a sentence so we can parole him. And then the governor says, well, thank you for making the recommendation. I'm going to sign it here. And then a year later or 6 months later, they come up for parole. And then the parole board says, oh, I know we made the recommendation, but now we changed our mind. So that doesn't happen, right? Now, it could happen that maybe there's something political in the background we don't know, where the governor says, whoa, I got a lot of pushback. Maybe, that could be a scenario. Or maybe the person gets a write-up or bad write-up in the interim. Or, like what's happening in this case, we have a new governor. And the new governor isn't going to care that the old governor's handpicked board recommended commutation, that the old governor signed the commutation hearing. So that's why there is a twist to this upcoming parole hearing. We have already seen one where the result was not what we expected. And we're going to see a lot showing up in this docket because the governor at the end of his term was handing out pardons and commutations left and right. It was part of his agenda. He was just, it was like an assembly line. And now with the new parole board showing up, these things might not be shoo-ins. And with the performance that we saw today from this guy, I don't know if the new parole board would grant him that grace. I like what Mr. O'Shea said, how he just called him out for it and was like, he's making a mockery of his victim, a complete mockery. And I don't know if you caught it. Richard put it in the notes, so I took an extra look when it happened. But when he mentioned the weight, Carrie smirked. And might tell you a few things. One is it looks like Carrie's sleeping, but he's listening. I think we got to give him credit for that. And but it's another thing is that, remember, Carrie's locked up for brutally taking his wife and almost his child. And it was in not just a brutal manner, but it was in a ridiculous, clownish manner where his when he claimed that he was innocent, he had the most bizarre, ridiculous story that is actually laughable. I played it for you once just recently in one of the last hearings, and I'll try to remember it, have it pop up here if you want, but it's so he can't be laughing about this stuff, but he really goes in. He talks about her weight. He shows up. He makes a mockery of her. He said, "Oh, the hammer. Oh, it was her gun. Oh, He went in and robbed her. It's like, what is wrong with you? I would have said, I don't care if you've been in there for 40 years. For the performance you just gave, screw you." But that's the difference when you don't have victims show up, when you don't have the DA show up. And there is an agenda, from their sitting governor at the time, and also to reduce the cost of keeping an inmate. He's been in there for 40 years. The cost every year of them being there is incredibly expensive. There is an agenda to move inmates out of the prison to bring down the cost. That's how Louisiana Project kind of exists. There was legislation passed. Well, what do you do with aging inmates? Oh, let's create grants for programs like Louisiana Project. They call themselves not-for-profits, but they got, I don't know the exact number, tens of millions of dollars over a decade designated from the taxpayer dollar to fund these inmates. So it's really just the cost is coming from one bucket to another bucket, but this was a joint effort from both sides of the aisle. It was a bipartisan thing because both of them can brag and say, look, the cost of prison is coming down and the number of inmates are coming down. Look how great we are. We're saving taxpayer money, but it's all a gimmick because the taxpayer money is still funding it. It's just going into now the Louisiana Parole Project's pocket. And also prisons in Louisiana, many of them are publicly traded. So there's lobbyists coming from that side saying, hey, we need to reduce our costs. So a lot of let's not, remember, let's not follow the dollar. That's where you get your answers. The whole thing is just a scheme. In some cases, it's really good. I think that there are inmates that benefit. Someone who's spent most of their life in prison for a nonviolent crime, they can get out and have a program like the Parole Project. But yes, I'm looking forward to seeing his parole hearing and seeing what the outcome is, and if there's any different. But with that, let's jump into one more hearing. Thank you, Richard, again for all the information. We're going to do one more. And with that, let's go.
Not only did you not help her, you joined in. What happened?
Well, we was all drinking and having a party, and she gave one guy sex, and the rest thought that they can get it, and they just went in there and took it.
The rest, be part of the rest?
Yes. The other guys that was in the house.
What about you? What did you do?
I had sex with her myself, and like I said, I regretted that I took part in it.
Do you have any idea how dehumanizing it is to have men do to her what you guys did to her? Do you have any understanding of what that would do to a person?
Well, I don't know about you, but that wasn't enough. I need some more. Sorry, Miss Jackson. So we're going to go into another one. We've seen it before a few years ago, so I think it makes sense to bring it back. With that, let's jump in.
Michael Hoffpower, DOC 416780.
You are Michael Hoffpower, DOC number 416780. You're here seeking the commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in the 14th District, Calcasieu Parish. September 1999, you received a life sentence for an aggravated rape conviction. Is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mrs.
Yes,
Johnson.
ma'am.
Good afternoon, Mr. Hoffpower. My name is Bonnie Jackson, and I will start the questioning for the board this afternoon. So I'm just going to talk to you about some things related to your case, as well as how you spent your time in prison. How old are you, Mr. Hoffpower?
55 years old.
And how long have you been in jail on this charge?
24 years.
This is, I'm not gonna go into all the details about the crime, but suffice it to say, it was a horrible thing that was done to this young woman. There were 7 of you involved in this assault. How many of you were actually prosecuted, Ms. Hoffpower?
There was 3 of us.
Okay. And what happened to your other 2, the other 2?
One is still here with me, and the other one hung himself in the cell block.
So were the other 2 also sentenced to life in prison?
Yes.
Well, tell us, Mr. Hoffpower, you were about 21, 22 when this happened?
I was 31 years old when
That's
it
right.
happened.
I'm sorry, I did the math wrong. Well, what was going on with you in your life at that time, Ms. Hoffpower, that would cause you to be involved in this kind of behavior?
I have a learning disability, and I was on Social Security and SSI at the time when all this took place. And I went to 3rd grade education, and stuff. And I didn't get much education, so.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more. You indicated that you went into foster care from ages 8 to 18. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I was in a boys' home in Leesville State School.
And you were there about 10 years?
Yes, ma'am.
And once you were released from that facility, where did you go? Who did you live with? How did you support yourself?
I was living with my mother, helping her, and she passed away while I was in jail on this sentence.
Well, so from 18 to age 31, what were you doing with yourself?
I was working.
What kind of work did you do?
I was working at Pig Grill as a dishwasher.
And was that a part-time job, full-time job?
I was full-time.
And how long did you do that?
About 2 years.
What other kind of work did you do?
I was doing lawnmower repair work on the side.
What kind of repair work?
Lawnmower repair.
Lawnmower repair. Okay. So how did you come to be in the place where this woman was attacked?
It was in my uncle's house that I was taking care of while he was in jail.
Okay. And someone brought her to the house, or you brought her to the house?
No, Forrest Bradford brought the girl to the house. And everything just went haywire from there.
I don't know what haywire means, but we'll talk about that a little bit. But she says that she was sexually assaulted by at least 7 men at that place. You agree with that?
No, ma'am. There was 5 of us at the house at the time when she was there.
Mm-hmm. And did you participate in the sexual abuse?
Yes, ma'am, I did, and I regret every day that what happened to her, Miss Vidrine, and I wish I could take it back, but I can't. And I'm just asking mercy from the board that today to show my rehabilitation and the achievements that
We'll talk about that. Do you have a job at the prison?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
What's your job?
East Yard Sewage Trap. I do raw sewage.
And how long have you done that?
Uh, about 10 years.
What's your custody status?
I'm a minimum C,
And how long have you had that status?
7 years.
You've had 18 write-ups? Does that sound about right?
Yes, ma'am.
The last I show was in 2015. It was an aggravated disobedience. Tell us what happened.
I left some t-shirts and boxers at the foot of my bed, and I was asked to remove it, and I forgot and got rolled up.
Well, you've taken some programs since you've been incarcerated. One of them was the sex offender treatment program. Did you complete all 4 phases of that?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
All right, well, tell us about that. Tell us what you learned in that program.
I learned not to take responsibility on myself and not trying to blame others for my actions, and then by taking the responsibility.
Well, let's talk. What did you learn about how sexual assaults affect the person who's the victim? What did you learn about that?
It shows me that by taking responsibility, I should have done something to help her, and I didn't do it.
Well, not only did you not help her, you joined in. What happened?
Well, we was all drinking and having a party, and she gave one guy sex, and the rest thought that they can get it, and they just went in there and took it.
The rest, be part of the rest?
Yes. The other guys that was in the house.
What about you? What did you do?
I had sex with her myself, and like I said, I regretted that I took part in it.
Do you have any idea how dehumanizing it is to have men do to her what you guys did to her? Do you have any understanding of what that would do to a person?
It traumatizes a person, and I not only hurted her, but her family, my family, and I regret it.
Her family wasn't the victim of a horrific sex.
Her family was not the victim, but Miss Vidrine was. So,
right, I want you to think about Miss Vidrine and what her life must have been like after what you guys did to her.
What we did to her was terrible, uncruel, and I can't really put it in words. But
she had been in a drug rehab program when you all committed this crime. Is that correct?
She was kicked out of Briscoe.
It doesn't matter whether she was kicked out or not. That doesn't justify what happened to her. But the point is, she was already struggling with drug issues.
Yes.
So how do you think that what you guys did to her affected her struggle with drugs and addiction?
Well, we was already doing weed and crack cocaine in the house at the time when she came. she took part in all of that.
Well, Mr. Hawk, I'm really saying that you don't really understand how serious what happened to this, young woman was. You completed your sex offender treatment in 2020, is that correct?
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
sorry, 2019, I'm sorry, in 2019, you completed your sex offender treatment, is that correct?
Yes,
And you applied for a pardon in 2020. That sound
Yes.
about right?
yes, ma'am.
So you applied after you had completed all 4 phases of sex offender treatment. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
I want you to listen to what you said back then when you applied, speaking about what happened. You said it wasn't consensual, but it wasn't forcible either. She never said no. So I kind of say it was about simple rape, just to the average. Well, that doesn't sound like someone who learned a lot in sex offender treatment about what rape is and what rape does to a human being.
Well, at the time when I filled out the application, I had someone help me to put it together, and I didn't fully understand on what he put in on the application before I sent it in.
Well, but he would only put down the statement that you made. He wouldn't make up a statement. He'd just say what you said, even though he helped you fill it out. Well, let me ask you this: where's your family?
They left Louisiana when I come to prison.
So you haven't had any contact with them since then?
I'm in contact with one sister, and that's about it.
Where does she live?
In Nakona, Texas.
Okay. Well, if you were to be successful, how are you going to live? Where would you live? What would you do for a living? How would you take care of yourself?
I was going to go to the Department of Parole transition housing and go from there.
So where?
To the parole project in Baton Rouge, to the transitional housing, and they provide you with a job and a housing.
I'm familiar with the parole project, but they're not involved in your case. When they're involved in your case, they appear on your behalf, they send somebody to talk to you, they appear in front of us, and we don't have any of that. So what kind of work would you do?
I would try to open up my own lawnmower repair shop and try to make it from there.
How would you do that? Take some money to do that. How would you do that?
I would have to get out and get a part-time job or doing something and build up some money to where I can open up my own business.
Warden, can you tell us anything about Mr. Hoffpower?
Jack, you pretty much covered everything that I would have to have offered.
All right, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mrs. Jackson. Mr. Hoffpower, is there a statement you'd like before we vote?
I like to apologize to Miss Vidrine to all the hurt and pain and suffering that I put her through the years, and I just hope that she'll forgive me and ask the board to have mercy upon me. as well.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your remarks. I think we're prepared to vote. Mrs. Jackson will be voting first.
All right, Mr. Hoffpower, I'm worried about you. I don't think you have really gotten what you need to get out of the programs you've taken. I know you're still struggling to try to get a GED and haven't been able to do that. You don't have any family support. You don't have any support from anyone on the outside. You don't have any real job skills. And, to release you under those circumstances would be to put you in a worse position than you are now, because you could very well end up homeless because you don't have anybody who's out there, helping you and providing you the things that you need. So I don't think you're ready today. I think you've got a lot more work to do. I think you need to, get with a transition team to try to develop a transition plan. Because right now, if we were to let you out, or if you eventually got out soon, you wouldn't make it. You don't have what you need to make it. So I want you to keep working on that GED. Try to, make connections with family. Try to make a connection with the parole project. But today, my vote is going to.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I sent the Pardon and Parole Board my portfolio, and I sent one also to the parole project. Now,
They have-
I don't know.
We have all that. We're voting now.
Right. So, but I just don't think you're ready. I think you have some more things you need to put in place. So my vote today would be to deny.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Mr. Roshi.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Hoffpower,
Yes, sir.
based on express opposition from the victim, the DA's office, law enforcement, and what I consider insufficient time, 24 years, for a conviction of aggravated rape, I'm going to deny your request.
Thank you, Mr. Roshi. Mr. Mirabella.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Hoffpower, I agree with my colleagues. I think you need some more work. My vote likewise is to deny. Good luck to each.
Thank you, Mr. Mirabella. Mr. Freeman.
I also vote to deny.
All right, Mr. Hoffpower, and I do concur. I think you have some more work to do, so my vote is the same. So you need to get busy. Today, your application for clemency has been denied, sir.
All right, thank you.
So let's unpack this. I mean, for one, I gotta say, I love the Miss Jackson hearing. She is just so good. And it's only after seeing all these different states or different parole boards that really makes me appreciate it even more. And I miss her so much. I miss this board. I miss Mr. O'Shea. I even miss Mr. Mirabella. It's, there's also something that I've been seeing, which is, on Mandu 2, the second channel, covering Iowa, Utah, Illinois, and Connecticut. And it gives me a much deeper appreciation for the quality of the board in Louisiana, for their process, for the seriousness, for how they handle crime in general. And I'll give you an example. Maybe you've seen this. It has like 70,000 views, posted a couple weeks ago. I'll put a link in the description, but just covered a case out of Iowa of a man who had a similar crime. There was 4 men involved, 2 underage girls, and he gets up for parole after serving just 6 years. Okay. I'm not going to tell you the result of it, but the difference between the sentencing is just night and day. Now, of course, I'm not going to forget the idea and the fact and the bottom line that legislation is still messed up in Louisiana, that when it comes to what things that happen to children, they get little slap on their sentences. Those really, you know, sentencing, it makes no sense. It makes no sense how we see things that are just unfathomable happen to children, parents doing it to their own biological children and getting just 4 years, 2 years, 6 years, 8 years. And in this case, they decided to throw the book at this group of people. They did go to trial, so we have information. And thank you, Richard, for sharing it with me. You know what I did? If you see that little red thing popping up, it's because I hung a photo. I hung a drawing. I'm world's best dad. My kids made this for me. And it's their little hands. Mama Do had the idea. It's really cute. But yeah, there's a drawing there, and I need to move it probably because it kind of looks weird. It's popping up behind me. Anyway, so if we go look at this, and so just the way that he spoke about it too, Miss Jackson called him out. But here's the facts of the case. So VC testified at trial that she met the co-defendant Michael Gilroy when she was first admitted in Briscoe's inpatient narcotics rehabilitation program in Lake Charles. 2 weeks later, on September 28th, 1998, the center asked VC to leave for not following the rules. Upon leaving, VC tried to call someone to pick her up and take her to Opelousas for the facility's lobby, but was unsuccessful. Gilroy, who was also leaving Briscoe Center on this date, offered to help VC find a ride home. Two proceeded on foot to Dewey Miller's house at about 3 to 3:30 p.m. Miller, a friend of Gilroy's mother, let VC use the phone to try to find a ride to Opelousas. VC used the phone and stayed at Miller's house for approximately 45 minutes. So remember, this all starts by her leaving the program facility. And this is his co-defendant's appeal, by the way, not his appeal. Gilroy and VC left Miller's residence and encountered the defendant, Schoening, who was driving a blue pickup truck. Gilroy and VC proceeded to nearby gully and smoked the devil's lettuce filled cigar, aka blunt. After Gilroy and Schoening assured VC they would find her a ride, the three proceeded to the house where the sexual assaults occurred. VC testified that when she entered the house, she saw Randy, Pops, McDonald, Forrest Red Bradford, and Michael Hoffpower lying around watching TV. After some time passed, Schoening and Gilroy decided to leave and told VC to stay at the house. VC testified she was drinking a Mickey, which is a large beer, and shared her Xanax with the men. She was very relaxed, a little bit out of it, but very aware. At some point, someone told her to go to the back room to see about getting a ride. Red, all these nicknames they have, was in the bedroom and told her he had a ride for her, but he wanted to have sex with him. Her to have with him in return. She said no. Red told VC that she did not want what he wanted, he would hurt her. He then started unlacing her boot and ordered her to remove them. VC testified Red forced his in her mouth, then took off her. When he finished, Red told her to stay on the bed naked and he left the room. She decided to put her clothes on. Red came back in and told her she had to give Pop some. She again said no. Gilroy and Schoening entered the room, turned out the lights. She stated that he pointed a gun at her and told her he would kill her if she did not stop screaming. Pops did it twice. I'm just going to screen what he did here. She stated that the men took turns with her and Schoening was the third man. VC testified that he placed a gun in her mouth after she told him no. I mean, you just can't make this up. The way he talked about it, like, yeah, whatever. I didn't know. I didn't stop. He then put a pillow over her head and hit her in the head 5 times with the gun because she was screaming. She got quiet because she was scared. After the men left the room, she put her underwear, pants, socks, shoes. She could not find a shirt, so she picked up a shirt from the floor and put it on. VC testified she walked outside the house was shown in Gilroy. Pops called her back inside the house and made her sit on his lap. He told her he loved her, and that is why he did it to her. Gilroy walked VC halfway back to the Briscoe, and she ran the rest of her way. When she arrived, I love you. I love you. Can you imagine? When she arrived at the facility, she banged on the locked doors until someone came. She told them what happened, and they called the police. And, you know, she took the stand. She was, you'll see in here, I'm not going to go through all of it, but there's, you know, Richard provided all the appeals. They want to say, well, she was on Xanax. How could she know? She did initially say there were 7 men, as Miss Jackson had said. Maybe Miss Jackson was looking at the police report or something, but it was 5. And they said, well, see, how could you, you know, but thankfully they came to the right conclusion. And good for her for standing up against them, and good for the DA for prosecuting it and all of that. And so he's still locked up. You know, I'm recording this as of 7/15/2024. I know I did this once before, if you remember. Good on you. I'm doing some of them again. You know, frankly, I couldn't. It was hard to remember the case, and also I just really miss the old board. So I thought I'd bring these back. Let me know your thoughts on if you want me to continue doing the older board stuff or if you just want to move forward. But we're probably going to see him again. I don't see why he's not going to reapply. I can't imagine he does any better with the new board, but we shall see. And with that, I'll let you go.